Welcome back to Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Ollie Hayes, and today I'm bringing the extra time match review for Leeds United 1, Everton nil. A pretty dismal showing across the Pennines at Elland Road as our opener of the season ends in defeat. So I'm going to break it down into the starting 11, my thoughts on the first half, my thoughts on the second half, and then also just some general thoughts about the game itself. But we'll start with the starting 11. And I think absolutely no one in the Everton fan base predicted that that was going to be the starting 11. What we saw at 6:45 was something drastically different to what we all expected. I think we all expected Jack Grealish maybe to come in from the start. And definitely didn't expect James Garner to be starting at left back, that was for sure. Obviously, Adam Asnew wasn't in the squad, and Vitaly Mikalenko was out with an injury which he sustained against Roma. So it was James Garner that was filling in at left back. Carlos Alcaraz out wide on the right hand side once again, which I feel like isn't his best position. So I think the biggest thing from the starting 11 was just showing how threadbare we are in terms of the squad. It's something that we really need to address between now and the end of the window, in my opinion, because the strength and depth is absolutely nowhere. So if you're going into a Premier League game with that as your squad, I think maybe we're in more trouble than what we would have expected. But where was Adam Asner as well, a player that we've signed from Bayern Munich, which he's had a lot of hype around him. There's been a lot of talk about him being one for the future. And then obviously, if you're looking at the Vitaly Mikalenko injury, for example, it's almost the perfect opportunity for Adam Asnew to come into the side. And Adam Asnew was nowhere to be seen in the squad. Maybe we have to wait a little bit longer to see where he was and why he was absent from the squad for Leeds. But moving away from that now, we'll go into the first half, and it was very poor, wasn't it? It was all Leeds. Maybe first 20 minutes, half an hour, I think you had to expect Leeds were going to be on top of the game. Listen, Elland Road is a fantastic football ground. It's a ferocious crowd. They really get behind Leeds. And you almost expected it was going to take maybe 10, 15, almost 20 minutes for Everton to bed into the game, with obviously the ferocious crowd playing its part. But we massively struggled that whole first half to get into the game. I can't really think of any chances we created. Anything that went up to Beto, it came straight back. He was like a trampoline up front. And listen, I'm a big defender of Beto. I love his work. I thought he was fantastic towards the back end of last season, but I thought he had a real poor performance last night, especially in that first half, because he really struggled to trap anything down, and any ball that you would expect a centre forward to maybe hold up and give the defence or the midfield a little bit of respite, it was coming straight back and it was bouncing off Beto. So it wasn't his finest hour and it wasn't his finest game in Everton blue. And as I said before, we just struggled all half really to get into the game, to keep hold of the ball. I think it was in the 60s, almost 70s for possession at one point for Leeds. And listen, I know David Moyes is a manager that doesn't like to have a lot of the ball. It's something that we've seen, specifically towards the back end of last season. We didn't see a lot of the ball. We just made our chances count. But I didn't expect that. A Leeds side that have come up from the Championship. Listen, they've got decent pedigree. They've got a decent squad there, but it's a game that we should be dominating, in my opinion. And especially that first half, I would have liked to see us assert ourselves maybe for the back 20 minutes, and it just didn't happen. Leeds had all the chances, and there's nothing really to note from Everton in that first half. And I think we were massively lucky to go in at half time, level at 0-0, and that really says something to the level of performance. But I was thinking, listen, it's a bad performance. It can't get much worse. And second half, it was a little bit better. Dewsbury Hall linking up with Njai a couple of times. There was one where Dewsbury Hall flicked one around the corner, and Iliman Njai broke away. Obviously, it came to nothing, but I think it's showing signs that they have got a little bit of an understanding. They've got a little bit of a partnership, which is something we're going to have to look into tap into into the next couple of weeks. But I still feel like we lack that cutting edge in the final third, which is, I keep saying it all the time. We just lack that just bit of need or a bit of grit in the final third to really carve out a chance, and that little bit of quality that sometimes these top teams that win games week in week out, these top teams have that little bit of cutting edge and quality, and we really lacked it last night. And listen, the complexion of that second half, listen, I've slagged off Everton there for the first half. I thought we were poor, but the second half, the complexion of that game, I think it changed a little bit, and it was a lot more even. It was a little bit more end to end, and we did create a few chances. I think it was Carlos Alcaraz from a decent bit of skill from Dewsbury Hall. Carlos Alcaraz was found on the box and forced a good save from Lucas Perry in the Leeds goal. And obviously, Grealish coming on changed the dynamic a little bit. He was a little bit more powerful in his running. Listen, Jack Grealish is going to be a fantastic player for us. I have no doubt about that in my mind. But he really struggled also to get into the game. Obviously, it was difficult circumstances. Also, Jake O'Brien had a pretty decent chance. It was a free header in the box, and he headed that one over. He just got under it. So there was chances there for us to really make an impact and win the game. And as I said before, Grealish winning it, coming on in difficult circumstances. He won a free kick as well, which came to nothing. But Obviously, as you're ticking over into 80 minutes, you're thinking it's next goal wins territory, really. And as I said before, ticking over into 80 minutes, 82 minutes was the eventual match-defining game. Anton Stack has a shot from the edge of the box. It ricochets up onto James Tarkowski's arm, and with some deliberation from the referee and apparently now the linesman, Leeds were given a penalty. I think that was on 82 minutes. Listen, this one, it feels very, very, very harsh to me. It's a natural position. I don't get where the conclusion has come to where, James Tarkowski is using his arm and he's leaning into it, because I don't know what he can do. It's his natural silhouette of his body. He can't put it further into his body, his arm. It's a natural silhouette. I'm seeing people saying, you've got to chop his arm off for him to actually not be able to give away a penalty there. And it's natural position. It's by his side. He can't do anything, in my opinion. So if you compare it to the handball this weekend in the Liverpool Bournemouth game, for example, if you're comparing it to that, there's just absolutely no consistency with refereeing, in my opinion. So as I said before, obviously Leeds given the penalty there, and Nemecha slotted away. But for the really good try from Pickford to try and save it, got down well to his left hand side, but it was just a well placed penalty. And Everton found themselves 1-0 down with about 5 or 10 minutes to go. So again, I think it was the writing was on the wall at that point. Once we'd conceded, we didn't really look like having the cutting edge to go and maybe find an equaliser. And I think Tieno Barry coming onto the pitch was a little bit too late for me. I think that was probably 10, 15 minutes too late. Where if you'd have brought him on at 0-0, he might have been able to affect the game a little bit more, with Leeds maybe playing out of their shell a little bit more, and not sitting back and protecting what they've got. But as I said before, yeah, that seemed to be the one that was the match defining moment. It was the writing was on the wall from that point, and Leeds took home all 3 points from the game in a 1-0 victory. Listen, realistically, we weren't good enough last night. The performance wasn't good enough as a whole. I think if you're looking at the bigger picture, did Leeds deserve it? Yes, I think they probably did. Maybe a 0-0 draw was probably a fair result on the complexion of the second half. But Leeds, listen, they were fantastic last night. I thought they were a lot better than we were. They wanted it a little bit more. I think the standout performers for them were the likes of Anton Stack and Altanaka in midfield. I think they had really good games. They were always going to be up for it, Leeds. It was the first game back in the Premier League, a ferocious Elland Road who wanted to get behind their side, and it was an atmosphere which we were always going to struggle in. But I didn't think we were going to have struggles in terms of quality to match them. That was one thing that was a little bit disappointing to me. So realistically, we weren't good enough. If you're looking at the bigger picture, there was no real standout performance for Everton. Maybe Jordan Pickford at times keeping us in the game, and also Jack Grealish coming on. I think he showed spells of playing well, and he's going to be a decent player for us. But realistically, it wasn't good enough. We weren't good enough in terms of performance, and we have to put it right on Sunday, in my opinion, now at Hill Dickinson Stadium against Brighton. But that is all from me today. Let me know your thoughts on the game against Leeds United away at Elland Road. Were you disappointed with the performance? Do you think there's some positives to take from that? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. But that is all from me today. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon.